Shalom, shalom. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel, Los Caminos de Israel, Darkei Israel, and wanting to follow up on a conversation I was having with someone with the Nochad movement. I believe he's a rabbi, where he says he was never informed or taught that it's okay to proselyte and to encourage others to become Jews. And so this whole series that I have been posting on this particular Facebook page of Ways of Israel has been addressed to that particular rabbi, that group. We talked about Ruth, our ancestor, who basically was discouraged from becoming a Jew, and thus he pointed out a Midrash that mentions that we're discouraged converts from becoming Jewish people. Based on that Midrashim, keep in mind it's a Midrash, and just like he has a Midrash, I also have a Midrash in which we find Abraham, our father, who basically converted the people, brought people into his tent, you might say into his circle, into his environment, to encourage them to leave idolatry and to embrace the one faith. Now obviously, this Midrash Rabbah does not make reference to Noachide concepts whatsoever, just the opposite. It was in fact encouraging people to follow the faith of Abraham. So we now have a whole different series of issues. Would then the Noahide become followers of Abraham and taking upon themselves the faith of Abraham versus what was taught before as just the mere 7 universal laws? So now we have an issue here, because we're going to take a look at the life of Yaakov when Dinah was also violated, that the solution to the immediate problem of the person and the prince of the city that wanted Dinah so bad that he was willing to have his whole city converted over. We know how that resulted in a very negative reaction from the two brothers the two brothers, Shimon and Levi. They basically set up a complete lynching because they had dishonored their sister in such a way that put the whole entire family at risk. And obviously the intention of the prince of Shechem was with a very lustful aspect, in which he was willing to succumb for the Berit, to do a circumcision. Keep in mind there's 2 aspects of the conversion. One is circumcision, and the other one is to enter into a mikvah or tavila. So obviously they did function and they did perform the first part, leaving the process halfway done, and obviously with the intention in question. But we see here that the very fact in such a situation, the rest of the tribes were open and willing to absorb the inhabitants of Shechem, even based on this. So, and we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of other examples in which the children of Israel were always proselytizers. So when did all of this end up? When did the Jews stop proselytizing? Well, they stopped proselytizing because their heads were at risk of being annihilated, completely killed. As a matter of fact, in the period of the Roman Empire, the Jews were so much into proselytizing that the whole entire world of Rome, of the Roman Empire, was being converted over to Jews during this period of time. And we're not talking about forced conversions. We're talking about actual conversions because they informed, they influenced, very similar that we have in our times. You see, when Torah knowledge becomes so vast and so open and so expanse, where no matter where you turn on internet or TV or the papers or the radio or the television, you have concepts of Judaism being taught about the one God, not Noahidism, You're not hearing about that. That's what they're flipping over and using that as the excuse to have people stay goy, stay non-Jewish. And this becomes a big problem, because what are we going to do with all these people wanting to convert? Convert them. But what's the problem? We've got to make sure that the quality's there. Okay, make sure the quality is there. But do not put obstacles in the path of a person wanting to convert because you feel the necessity of keeping them as a non-Jew, because you want to have that sense of elitism and make them feel less and be in a category that's less than that of a Jew, which is exactly what's happening throughout the world. This is why there are ramifications to our processes, as it were, and ramifications, no doubt about it. And we're seeing this in the world. We're seeing how the world is reacting to putting them and placing them in a category as a second citizen in the Jewish world. And unfortunately, we have a lot of rabbis who basically are encouraging, instead of convert, just be a good Noachide. Come on, leave us alone, be a good Noachide. And yet they don't say be of the faith of Abraham. So we have a problem, we have an issue here. The issue is we have a closed ceiling for conversion by the Rabbanut in Israel. And I've mentioned this many times. We have a closed mind among many of the Bet Dins that are established throughout the United States and the world, that they don't want a large influx of new Jews into the community. And we understand fully the consequences and situations where new Jews bring to a community. Let me put it this way. There was a Chabad community, I'm not going to mention what city, a Chabad community that they were dying out. As a matter of fact, the shul was shut down for reasons beyond their control, and a lot of the people left that shul for whatever reasons. And what kept that community up and alive were the converts that I was able to bring to them. And as a result, till this day, their doors are still open because of the converts, righteous converts. And now they attempt, and this is another step how they try to put obstacles in the way of the convert's life. What do? They can't disqualify the convert because he jumps all of the different obstacles. So what they do is they put obstacles as to, well, which Bet Din did you use? Well, which Bet Din did you use? Is it kosher? Is it according to the most strictest requirements? With the Yoredea, you'll understand that the requirements of the Bet Din is not as what they've been told to you. And this is another way that they put obstacles in the life of a convert. And unfortunately, we have this type of obstacle making in the Jewish world. This is why you'll find out, like in Pakistan, like in India, like in places that are far reached, even places that will place people in different situations. And I understand all of those conditions, but there's no reason why, as Jews, being almost everywhere in the world, that we should place additional obstacles in their way through the mediums of internet, of Zoom, and so many different ways. There is a possibility to bring all the nations that want to join Israel be part of Israel. And yes, there is another passage in the prophets that talks about that just prior to the coming of Mashiach, nations, peoples of the world will join Israel. Now there are two interpretations to that passage that's found in Zechariah. One is that no, they will join them as being an alliance to Israel. And the other interpretation is no, they will actually convert and become part of the Jewish people. So there are two opinions in that passage of the prophets, and I hold to the second one, that basically they will become part of the Jewish people, making it clear that many nations in that time prior to Mashiach will convert to Judaism. But obviously this presents another problem. It will be similar to that of what we read in the book of Esther, where at the end of the chapters we read that even many of the Persians said, Ani Yehudi. They identified themselves so much that they became Jewish, although there's an opinion that says no, they weren't Jewish actually. It was just that they were aligning themselves as Jews. So we have all of these different parts in our scripture that makes reference that Jews were proselytizers in many different ways, all the way up to about the 4th, 5th century, until the bubbemeiser began. What's the bubbemeiser? The bubbemeiser was, we Jews don't proselytize. No. We don't proselytize. We never proselytize. And that is the biggest lie that I've ever heard. If you study history, Jewish history, you will know that we did proselytize, but we stopped doing it because it became more appealing to be more unique and not be involved in the proselytizing business, like the other co-religion, Christianity and Muslim. So therefore we became more of the unique elite of the different faith, monotheistic faith. And thus we began telling people and telling our descendants, no, we don't proselytize, no, we don't do that. We are okay, we do that type of thing. And what ended up happening is that basically a lot more people began to convert, and they put more restrictions upon the people and put more buts in front of the people, more obstacles. And now we're in a situation where now a lot of Jews are saying, why do you want to become a Jew? The world that is converting over to Judaism say, why are you putting all these obstacles? I want to become a Jew. I understand the persecution and rejection. I understand all of that, and I still want to become a Jew. No, be a good Noahide. Be a good Noahide. Let's help make money for the rabbis by being a good Noahide. You know, I'm still upset over the fact that people are making money off the neck of Noahide, because if they were Jews, they wouldn't be able to do so. Because you can't charge a Jew to learn Torah. But you can charge a Noahide, and this is the way they justify it, in learning those portions of the Torah that they can learn. But as I mentioned before, and I keep on repeating it to all the audience, Rabbi Jacob Emden said, as long as a Noahide continues in his path of Noahidism, he is sinning until he converts to Judaism. Why does he say that? Because the perils of a Noahide, learning on himself, or even learning by a rabbi, may intrude into areas of Jewish law that's prohibited him. And because of that, he's risking a life of his soul. And this is why Rabbi Jacob Emden, a 17th century Talmudist and an incredible, intelligent man, who during the time of Shabbatai Zvi pushed the idea that the movement of the Shabbatai Zvi was another messianic movement that was going to upset the world. Very similar that we have today. And it's interesting that the Shabbatai Zvi movement also pushed, in that period of time, the Noahide faith. Think about that for a second. They also pushed the Noahide faith movement during the time of Shabbatai Zvi. You will find that every single messianic movement in our Jewish history had a Noahide contingency. You'll find that even in Christianity. You'll find that in the book of Acts, that they told the non-Jews, only keep these 7 Noahide laws, which they resumed it into, or summarized it into 4, and you'll be good. If you want to learn anything about Judaism, you go to the local synagogue, go to where Moses is being taught, and go there to learn and teach. Well, obviously, many of these Noachites are not allowed to come into the synagogue in many parts of Latin America and in the world. They're ostracized, they're off limit. They're like very similar to the synagogue over here in Aventura that basically don't want any converts. Very similar, even worse. So my friends, when we talk about an opening of the door from Shemayim, to have people wanting to connect themselves to Torah, that is our, you might say, direct sign from above that God is doing something in this world to bring people closer to us and to support us and be strengthening the community, not going against them. When you throw that out, when you cast that divine intervention out and say, you know what, no thanks, God, then you're left in your homes completely with shuls shut, with problems taking place, and then you wonder, why is this happening? Think about that for a second. Why is this happening in the world? Why would God do this to our people? You know, we haven't done anything bad, or have we? We haven't done anything that would upset the divine, or have we? So, proselytizing is back. No question about that. And those who are involved in calling for the renewal or the return of this becomes the object of the attention of all the different rabbis. So imagine, you saw what Trump went through because he was able to reveal the deep, dark state. Well, every single person that's involved in conversions and involved in reaching out to other people to bring them in, they are also the target of the nasty ugliness that is in our community. And these are people that don't want other people to come in. They look at them as not wanted. And yet God is doing this. Then you have to ask yourself, what do we do? What do? We need to help them bring in. Once the candidate, once the person says, you know what, I know what you guys are going through, and you know what, even if you guys are rejected and are persecuted again and are hated, I understand that, and I understand that completely. I still want to no further condition. As a matter of fact, it says right there in your day at 268. You've got to process them in immediately, and just give them some basic information, education, and convert them. But we're not doing what the Shulchan Aruch says. We're not even doing what the Rambam says. So we have a problem. So when local rabbis begin to do and assume their responsibility in helping people come into the fold, they're doing God's work. They're doing God's work. It's increasing the fold. It's multiplying Israel. It's strengthening Israel in ways you have no idea. Well, we will continue this topic on the proselytizing Jew and the bubbemeiser of what people are saying. We never proselytized. Judaism is not a proselytizing faith. It's not a proselytizing family. No, we are toxically proselytizing even when we say we're not. Think about it. Look at the entire internet. Look at all the consequences that's taking place as long as people are teaching online. How many of the rabbis that are online right now they're saying, I don't proselytize, by their teaching on public mediums, they are, in fact, proselytizing and reaching out to people who in other ways would not have heard. And the first step of convincing someone of your position is by speaking and teaching to them. They become influenced, they become convinced of your ideas, and then they follow. After all, this is exactly what Chabad knows and has done for ages since they were established here in the United States. They went to reach out to the Jew first, but they didn't leave back the non-Jew. And this is why it's so important for you and I and the whole world get together, because this project is greater than just one bet din. It's greater than one shtibel located in the local city. It requires the work of all Israel, all Jews, because we are, after all, a light unto the nation. Shalom, shalom. We'll talk about this more online. And remember, those of you who are on WhatsApp and are connected to our groups, we're going to be transiting over to Telegram. It's already connected. Just look for my number, which is public, and join Telegram right now. Shalom, shalom.